Hi, Terry here from Stamping Magic. Welcome back to my channel. Today's project is another very sweet butterfly card. I've used the Butterfly Brilliance stamp set for the butterflies, the artistically inked stamp set for the sentiment, and the paper comes from the Pansy Petals Designer Series paper pack. And I've created another pop-up butterfly card. Inside there are two panels where you can write your message. So let's get started. These are all the measurements you need for all the elements required to create this project. So if you're interested in reproducing it, take a screenshot so you can refer to it later. Here is the Butterfly Brilliance stamp set. You've got 6 different butterflies, all in different sizes, and these come as one stamp. So I'm going to ink up the whole stamp and then stamp it down onto my basic white card. I've already gone ahead and stamped and coloured most of the butterflies that I need, so you'll only see me stamp this once, but you'll need to do it twice. And here are all my butterflies. Now I die cut these using one of the Brilliant Wings dies, and it's this large die that matches the stamp exactly. Now the reason you need to stamp it twice is because you need 2 of the smaller butterflies. It doesn't matter which of the smaller butterflies that you duplicate, it's completely your own choice. Now there'll be one butterfly that I don't use, and that may be this one, or it may be the largest one, which I'm going to show you how I colour. I'll decide on which one once I start putting the card together. This is the artistically inked stamp set, and today I'm using the Happy Birthday sentiment. I'm stamping on a scrap of basic white cardstock, and I'm using Memento Tuxedo black ink. I'm going to use one of the stitched rectangle dies to die cut the sentiment, and it's the smallest one. Now the die is actually too small for the sentiment, so I'm going to extend it using a partial die cutting technique. I used the Big Shot, so I have the bottom half of my sandwich here, and I'm going to place my sentiment on top and then the die on top of that. Now I'm going to cut the front part of the sentiment first of all. So I'm positioning the die, and when I'm happy that it's where I want it and it's straight, I'll secure it with a little bit of washi tape. I can then add my top plate. Now I'm not going to cover all of the die with the plate. Your die cutting machine will only cut what's covered. So I'm leaving the back end of that sentiment clear. And once it's been done, this is how it will look. So if I remove the plate and just flip it over, you can see it's just made a partial cut. It hasn't cut the whole die. So if I remove my sentiment from the die, you can see that partial cut. So it's done the front end but not the back end. Now I'm going to reposition the die and line it up with the back part of the sentiment, and the stitch marks on the die will fall into the stitch marks that have already been cut. So just give it a wiggle and it will eventually just sit in there. Once you're happy, secure with washi tape. Now I'm going to cover with the plate again, but this time I'm going to just cover the back end of that sentiment. As soon as the die cutting machine drops off that plate, it will stop cutting. Now before you release the die, just check the back and make sure you've got a continuous cut. If you haven't, you'll need to replace your top plate and run it through again just to recut that back end. You didn't position the plate far enough. So now when I release my sentiment, it's all in one piece and it's longer than the die. I've gone ahead and die cut 2 basic white mats, and I've used the stitched rectangle dies for this again, the 5th size down or the 4th size up. I have a piece of the Pansy Petals Designer Series paper here, and this is in Fresh Freesia gingham, and I love it. Now this needs to be folded at the halfway point. You can score it first if you want. If your standard card is A4, it needs to be scored at 10.35 centimeters. If your standard card is 8.5 by 11, then it needs to be scored at 4 1/8 of an inch. But because it's just a paper weight, it's very easy just to fold in half and then burnish with your bone folder. I'm going to use a pencil and make a few marks to mark the position for the pop-up section. Now you need to come in from the side edges. If you're an A4 user, this needs to be 4 centimeters in. If you're an 8.5 by 11 inch user, this needs to be marked at 2 inches. So that's from each side edge in towards the center. The last mark is on the center fold line, and this needs to be measured from the top down towards the bottom. And you're going to make a mark at 7 centimeters for A4 users, or 2 3/4 inches for 8.5 by 11 inch users. All that's left to do is score between the marks. So you're going from the center up to each of the marks, and this will score a V in the center of your paper. It doesn't matter which way you fold the lines to start off with, because you need to fold them both ways. So the top half of the center seam is going to be a mountain, but the bottom half will be a valley. So the easiest thing to do is just fold on the lines, and when you get to this point, make sure that your paper lines up on the edges. Give it another burnish, and that will ensure that everything's sort of straight and as it should be. Once you've folded all the score lines in one direction, then reverse them and fold in the opposite direction. And in my case, this will be how the paper piece will sit inside the card. And again, line up those edges and burnish the score lines. Don't forget to erase the pencil marks. My card base is in basic black, and this is half a standard sheet of card scored in the middle and folded to create a side opening portrait card. Then for the front of the card, I have a mat in fresh freesia and some of the matching designer series paper. Then for inside the card, I have the paper piece that I've just created. Now, if you lay this on top, you will see that it's just a little smaller than your card base. So you should have an even border all the way around with your center seams matching. Now, when you add the glue, you do not add glue to that big V at the top where you scored. I've added dimensionals onto the back of my sentiment piece and also the 2 butterflies that will be on the front of the card. I've just added them to the tips of the wings. Then I've got all my other butterflies and my 2 white mats for inside. All that's left to do is add the butterflies to the inside of the card. So I'm just going to have a little play and see where I want them to be positioned. And to help me, I'm going to add a little repositionable or temporary adhesive to the 2 butterflies that are going to pop up, and this will allow me to move them around a bit. Now you need to make sure that the two butterflies that are popping up, when the card is closed, you cannot see them round the edges of the card. So it's a bit of a trial and error to position these how you want them. And once I've got these positioned, I can position the other butterflies as well. Once you're happy, you can glue them into place. You want to make sure that there's no sticky residue left from the glue, especially if you've moved the butterflies around a little bit. So just go over the butterflies with your embossing buddy just to make sure that there's nothing that's going to stick when your card is opened and closed. And that's my card complete. I love it. I think this pop-up is fabulous. Now here's another look at my original card. I used pale papaya together with balmy blue for this one. I also stamped the sentiment in balmy blue. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.